I'll now hand over to Roger Simons, Director from Calcutta Group, who will talk more about the process that we plan to undertake in order to commission this service. Thank you.
Morning everyone. My job here today is to talk through effectively the next coming months in terms of the procurement transaction process. Our intention is to make it as painless as possible for you, but clearly there are government processes we need to follow. Thankfully, we've run a number of processes for government where we are able to flex the system, and we'll be doing that with you. So, what I want to talk about is effectively those next steps. So, some of you will have seen the registration of interest documentation that's been released. That is principally focused on market sounding, market engagement. So that market sounding process is really the opportunity for us to engage with you and others to talk about your findings, your understanding of the sector, and any opportunities that may be presented by the services going forward. Just to be clear, there's no obligation to participate in market sounding, and if you do participate, it won't confer any advantage on you in the further transaction processes, but it's really our opportunity to hear it sort of firsthand from you. The expression of interest process is being launched today, and that is really your opportunity to step forward and say, yes, we do want to participate in this process going forward. We do want to be considered as a potential partner with the department to be that preferred supplier. So that is the sort of formal process that we are kicking off today. That will be followed by the tender process, and we're calling it an interactive tender process. I'll talk a bit more about that as we get there. But key to that is co-design. Now, co-design has been a bit of a buzzword for a little while now, and it means different things to different people. But what it really means is that full interaction early on, for the opportunity for us working with you to come up with solutions that best meet the outcomes we're looking for, as opposed to us mandating those solutions. And again, we'll touch a bit more on that. At the end of that co-design process, there is the formal request for tender, i.e. your formal proposal, which will then be evaluated by the evaluation panel and then move into contract mobilisation. It is going to be a swift process. We've run this process as quickly before, and the feedback we've had generally is pretty positive, because sometimes people's engagement in procurement processes, they become quite long and protracted. By moving quickly, it hopefully gives you confidence that there's an outcome not too far away. So, looking at the EOI evaluation criteria, we are trying to make the responses as lean, as efficient as we can do. We don't want to overburden you at this stage, but obviously we need to be comfortable that the parties that we take forward into the next stage, into that request for tender, do have the capability and capacity. Vision and objectives is around really your opportunity to demonstrate your understanding of what the department's vision is. Supplier structure we'll touch on is really how you might be proposing to come forward. As we've talked about, we are keen to encourage partnerships or consortia. If they're not readily formed at this stage, that's not an issue. But if you have intention to partner with organisations, it would be useful for us to understand that at this time. Experience and capability is obviously one of the key tests in terms of your ability to provide the sort of services that we require as a result of this commission. Financial capability and capacity. Again, we don't want to put too much burden there, but we do need to be comfortable that, if you were successful going forward, that you do have that financial capability and capacity to deliver the services over the term of the contract. Compliance and acceptance is a simple checklist. And value adding is really your opportunity to put forward any other suggestions that you might feel that would be of benefit going forward. Because ultimately, the outcome of this process is a partnership with the department, with a preferred supplier that really is working in partnership with delivering a combined solution. Just in sort of simple summary terms of that process overview that I've just talked through, effectively the purpose of the funnel is to demonstrate that we're going as wide as we possibly can at the moment with this market engagement piece, and then through progressive stages refining the solutions down, refining the requirements down, and ultimately refining down to the preferred supplier, and then moving into that implementation and monitoring phase. And it's likely that actually that funnel will widen out after implementation and monitoring, because one of the things we'll probably talk about in the co-design phase is how, particularly from an outcomes-focused and key performance indicator process, how the preferred supplier will gather data and then over time will refine that data as part of the outcomes for the process. So there we are, outcomes-focused process. So what we've been doing at the moment in trying to define the department's requirements is looking at what are the problems. And again, part of the market sounding will be to hopefully flesh some of those out, hear from you. We've touched on them previously, a bit of them around capabilities, not only at an individual level, but it's an organisational level. There's obviously the geography that's been mentioned, the capacity. We need that future sustainability, ability to attract and retain, and the potential high turnover of staff and lack of succession planning. So those are some of the problems we've identified. Now, obviously, we've done that in isolation, but part of the process going forward will be to expand on that. And then what does that mean? With sort of three key streams that you'll see defined in the EOI document is around workforce planning, workforce development, and workforce support. And I think those will form the core components of the service going forward. That then leads to a series of service outcomes and then ultimately benefits. And those benefits over time, once they get refined, will then form the key performance indicators that will underpin the contract going forward. So again, we'll be doing quite a lot of this sort of analysis as we go forward into the next stage. And that next stage is co-design. So what is co-design? It's really using people's interaction to define solutions, as opposed to taking a predefined solution to the market and saying, you bid that solution back to us. It's really engaging with stakeholders. So you as stakeholders, stakeholder-centric. So you actually, as deliverers of these services, are best placed to know what that service should look like. The department obviously has its own views, but part of the co-design process will be working in partnership. And it's that backwards approach to design. Instead of saying, well, here's a solution, we think it's going to push out some benefits. It's about identifying those benefits that we defined earlier on and working back from those benefits. If we want to achieve those benefits and outcomes, what is the best solution that is, capable of being delivered? That's the other important thing from co-design, is actually understanding what is the capability and capacity to actually deliver that solution, as opposed to mandating a solution that may not be capable of delivery. The benefits, it's that engagement and communication, it's that real thorough understanding of the problem. When we've run these processes before, feedback we've had from the supplier market is they've said, it's great, we've actually understood what that particular department is looking for. Often where there's cold, traditional, more sort of, here's a tender, respond to it with limited interaction often. And we're the same sometimes. You're often sort of second guessing as to what actually is the problem. What are you trying to answer? So the benefit of co-design is hopefully when you put your tender together, you really understand the problem that we're all trying to solve. The other opportunity that we've heard from that, and this has come from unsuccessful suppliers, so proponents who've been involved in the process and have not been successful, they've actually said it's actually improved their understanding as well and improved their way they approach it. So while no one wants to come runner-up, we have had positive feedback from those people who've come close and said, well, actually the process has helped them as an organisation. But again, our obligation to you is to make sure that it's not a big burden on your time and to manage it efficiently over the coming weeks and months. So the sort of workshop structure, and this is at high level, this will get more defined as we go through. At the early stage of co-design, again, going back to that funnel, the early stages is around context and partnerships. So as a collective, really understanding what is the context behind the service, so that what it means is that those parties that are shortlisted to go through to the next phase will be in sessions like these, albeit not with me talking to you, but much more interactive, actually sharing a common understanding of the problems. So for those of you who might have been involved in a more formal request for tender process where each proponent A comes in on a Monday, proponent B comes in on a Tuesday, proponent C comes in on a Wednesday, at the early stage we will be having A, B and C or more together to understand the problem and potentially share solutions. Now, we've always got to be careful, and Ian will remind me about this, about sharing intellectual property, but it really is getting a common understanding of what the problem and what the potential solutions are. As we then move through the various iterations, service by design is really looking at the particular areas of capability and capacity. That may be that we then start grouping people separately, dealing with people separately. But it will be at the end of the process when we have these interview sessions, which will be what we call testing and prototyping. That is totally independent, that is specific to your particular solution, but it's your opportunity in a non-evaluated forum to come along and say, right, we've understood the problem, we've been involved in the co-design process, we believe the best solution to that is X. It's an opportunity for you to test that solution with the department before effectively putting your solution to paper. And again, we found that proves really useful. Suppliers get good feedback from that, and it's really about giving you an opportunity to put your best foot forward in a non-evaluated manner. So if you come in and get it horribly wrong, it doesn't matter, you've got the opportunity to put it right. Hopefully you won't be. Hopefully after this you'll be all ready to go. As I've said there, so highly interactive, designed to create innovative solutions. We know that there is not one single solution, and that's why we're not going out in a very traditional way. And we also recognise that, as we've talked about, there is likely the need to be partnerships, and there may be a number of commercial arrangements that deliver that partnership. And we've got a couple of very basic models there. One is where you have the sort of lead supplier with a series of participants, i.e. a series of other sub-consultants, subcontractors, call them what you will. We're calling them participants in this documentation. The other one is where you have a very integrated, effectively a consortium where the supplier and the participant have come together and said, right, we're forming a joint venture or whatever commercial structure to deliver this over the period of the term. So again, it's not at EOI stage, it's not essential that you've locked down your structure, but if you're thinking along those lines, we'd like to understand it because it helps us. So questions and clarifications, just to make it clear, if there are questions and clarifications during the EOI process and following into the RFT process, that's a contact officer. I just want to make two general statements. If a question comes in and we believe it's general in nature, i.e. it just applies to the scope of the project, the responses will be sent to all. If you believe that your question is commercial in confidence, very specific to your organisation or your proposed solution, please highlight that you believe it's commercial in confidence. We will then review it. If we believe it's commercial in confidence, obviously we will only respond to you. However, if we believe that actually it's general in nature, we will come back to you and say, we don't believe that it's commercial in confidence for these reasons. We believe it's general in nature. We will then give you the opportunity to withdraw that question, or if you don't withdraw that question, agree that the fact it is general in nature, and we'll publish the answers to all. So just to make it sure that if you think it's really commercial in confidence, please make sure that you flag that, and we'll work with you on that. That's the timeline. As you see, we're going to move pretty quickly. We really want to get service delivery. So again, using the co-design process, we want to get service delivery early in September. So that doesn't leave long for contract mobilisation. So again, in terms of backing yourselves as being the preferred supplier, think, right, okay, if I'm going to get going on the 7th of September, what do I need to do to get there? Because again, part of the evaluation process going forward will be the department having confidence that you as suppliers can meet that target. So everything we're going to do, the pressure is on us over the coming weeks and months to make sure we meet these timelines, but then we'll obviously need to be working in partnership with you to get that mobilised. And again, part of the more detailed questions in the RFT will be around understanding your mobilisation plan once you've got a much clearer understanding of what the scope is.